how do you balance it all? Being a producer, being an artist, dropping content, just doing normal things in life outside of music. How do you balance just being a creator and, everything away from music?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely a process that I had to learn along the way and get better at. Have you heard of time boxing?
No, no.
Yeah, so time boxing is sort of this concept where within one particular day, and I think typically you're going to extend it out to a week, right? And you'll have kind of this view of the week. And within that week, you're going to have boxes of time. And you can have like 30-minute chunks or 15-minute chunks if you're trying to get really granular with how you're going to manage your time. But you're going to have these boxes. And then it's just an exercise of going through and saying, okay, I know I want 7 hours of sleep because that's where I'm going to function well. I'm going to feel great. So that goes in first. And then I know I have to work 35, 45 hours a week. Right. So I need to put that in and I relatively know what hours or time frames that's going to be in. So I do that. And then from there, it's just going through what are my priorities? What do I want to get done? What do I know I need to have accomplished this week? And then you just kind of allocate time for it and see where you're at and see like, do I have way too many things that I'm trying to do and I need to cut back, or do I actually kind of have some buffer time and I can just relax at some point? So I'd say that's sort of the first tactic I use. Um, I work full time as a data scientist, so I'm very like data and analytics driven. And one of the first things, one of the first like tenets of that world is if you don't measure it, you can't improve it. And so when it comes to time, if I was sitting there thinking, oh, I need to manage my time better, well, I need to measure it first, right? And that's one way that I can measure it. So that's the first. And then the other one is kind of going back to priorities, right? I think we live in a society where it's very easy to get wrapped up in instant gratification and like all these distractions, right? TikTok, Netflix, your iPhone, something else, I don't know, drinking. Um, and so just, it comes down to what are your priorities? And at the end of this week, at the end of this year, or at the end of your life, like what do you want to look back and say you accomplished? And if watching 100 Netflix movies isn't one of those things, like maybe one should watch less Netflix. Um, Not to say I don't watch Netflix, I don't go on TikTok or whatever. It's just they're not a priority, and so they don't eat up a lot of my time because I'm very cognizant of the fact that I'm watching it when I do, and I'm like, okay, it's been 10 minutes, I need to stop. I need to go do something else. So I'd say that's the other thing. And then third, kind of like what you were saying, it's finding the time in between priorities where you can create, right? Like I'm a huge fan of walking during my lunch breaks and just enjoying the outside and stepping away from the screen. And
Yeah.
during that time, I often write most of my stuff because I don't need anything to write. I just need to think about it, right? Um, I can somewhat create music, but I'm just not as good because I grew up doing a lot of sampling based music, right? I mean, loving hip hop. And so it's harder to like walk and think of a sample that I want to chop and how I want to chop it. I'm just not that skilled. And so a lot of the music creation happens when I'm sitting down at the computer. And so I think that's why I write more than I produce